On 60th birthday celebration, Marcus, despite my objections, insisted on picking up his intern, Chloe. His excuse was that she, being a young woman, had sprained her ankle and was in pain, so he brought her directly to our home. Leah was captivated by her new game console, called me a bad woman, and told me to get out of the house. As they wished, I left immediately. But barely a week after I was gone, Leo and my husband were crying, begging me to come home. One Henry rarely came back to the country, and it happened to be his 60th birthday celebration. Marcus, raise another toast to your father, dear. Eleanor, with a smile on her face, nudged Marcus beside me with her elbow. After several rounds of drinks, Henry's face glowed with a healthy flush. He raised his glass, the wrinkles around his eyes softening. It was clear he was very happy today. Just then, Marcus's phone on the table buzzed abruptly. Marcus immediately looked down at the screen, his brows furrowing into a knot. I'll step out to take a call. He completely ignored Henry's raised glass, and quickly walked straight to the corridor outside the private dining room, considerately closing the door behind him. My heart sank. Henry's expression also turned to one of surprise. Through the frosted glass, I could only make out his blurry figure. He was standing sideways, seemingly trying hard to keep his voice down. That cautious posture made my fingers, holding a glass of juice, subtly tighten. A few minutes later, he pushed the door open and came in. Grace, I have to go out for a bit. Eleanor's smile froze. Chloe, she's a new intern at our company, he paused, she just called to say that she sprained her ankle because the road was slippery from the rain, and now she's alone and in too much pain to move. The private dining room fell silent, and all eyes turned to us. I took a deep breath, trying to keep my voice calm. Can't you ask one of the male colleagues from the company, or can't she just call an ambulance herself? It's Henry's birthday today. She's a young woman, new to the city, and she's my assistant. If I don't go, who will? He raised his voice, as if I had made an outrageous demand. I looked at him, and he suddenly seemed like a stranger. Marcus, all our relatives are here. Can't whatever it is wait until the family dinner is over? Grace! He roared, his face filled with disappointment and reproach, you're a woman too. How can you be so cold-blooded and heartless? She's a young woman, all alone and helpless, how pitiful. Can't you be a little kinder? I looked at his face, flushed with agitation, then at Henry's face, which had instantly turned ashen at the head of the table. My blood rushed to my head. But he didn't even look at me, didn't even glance back. He turned, grabbed the umbrella from the entryway, and walked out the door without looking back. Marcus! I couldn't help but stand up. The door slammed shut. The entire private dining room immediately fell into a deathly silence. Chapter 2. It was 2 a.m., and Marcus still hadn't returned. After the scene he caused, Henry's birthday celebration ended abruptly. I curled up on the couch, too listless to even move. Outside the window, the rain pattered, like a melancholic overture. The sound of keys turning in the lock echoed, jarringly loud in the deathly silent living room. Marcus walked in, drenched and reeking of alcohol. As if he hadn't seen me on the couch, he tugged at his rain-soaked tie and walked straight to the refrigerator. How is she? My voice was calm. He paused in his drinking, then slammed the bottle down on the kitchen island with a thud. Took her to the hospital. It's nothing serious. His tone was impatient, as if my concern was an intrusion. Marcus, let's talk. I straightened up on the couch and switched on a floor lamp nearby. The dim yellow light illuminated half of his impatient face. What's there to talk about? He turned around, leaning against the kitchen island. Arms crossed, adopting a defensive posture. Can you stop making a scene in the middle of the night? My anger flared instantly. I'm making a scene? Marcus, do you know it's Henry's 60th birthday celebration today? Of course I know. He raised his voice, but was there alone, with a sprained ankle and a fever. If I didn't go, who would? Grace, can't you stop being so heartless? So, an intern's well-being is more important than Henry's birthday? It's not a matter of importance. He ran a frustrated hand through his hair. It's a matter of whether a person has any compassion. I really think you've been home too long, and you're becoming increasingly unreasonable. What else do you do every day besides overthinking and suspecting me? Look at you now, like a resentful woman, a suffocating resentful woman. I looked at him, at this face I had loved for 8 years, but which now seemed utterly foreign. Can't you learn from Chloe? She's a young woman, just starting out. She has to rely on herself for everything, but she's so diligent and full of energy every day. She's innocent and kind, unlike you, whose mind is full of these dirty schemes. After saying that, he actually hummed a tune and walked into the bathroom. Sleepless through the night, I don't know when I finally drifted into a restless sleep. When I woke up on the couch, I heard Leo and a woman's voice in the house. Wow, Aunt, you're amazing. I rubbed my eyes and got up, walking towards the home office. In the home office, Leo was leaning against Chloe, saying something. Marcus saw me approach, turned, and looked at me. Grace, this is Chloe, the new intern at the company. Marcus's tone was overly relaxed, as if he had just brought a regular colleague home. She has a project she doesn't quite understand, so I brought her back to guide her. Chloe's eyes curved as she smiled innocently at me. Hello. That hello was crisp and sweet, like a sugar-coated bullet, aimed precisely at my heart. I twitched my lips, turning away expressionlessly. Chloe took a beautifully wrapped box from her bag. Leo, Auntie brought you a present. It was the latest model of the game console. I had just refused Leo last week, telling him he had to wait until his final exam results were out. Leo let out a surprised shriek, dashed over, and unhesitatingly threw himself into Chloe's arms. Thank you, Aunt. I love you so much. Marcus stood by, a long unseen, genuinely heartfelt smile on his face, so tender it could melt butter. He looked at Chloe and Leo as if he were gazing at a perfectly harmonious painting, and I was the superfluous element outside the frame. The living room was soon filled with the noisy sound effects from the game console and their laughter. I watched the clock's hands, every second like an unbearable torture. Leo, it's 9 o'clock. Time for your homework. My voice sounded particularly jarring amidst the noise. No one paid attention to me. Leo's eyes were glued to the screen. I walked over, intensifying my tone. Leo, turn off the game and do your homework. Marcus frowned. Oh, let him play a bit longer. It's rare for him to be so happy. Chloe also softly advised, that's right, Grace. Kids have a lot of study pressure, they need to relax sometimes. They spoke in perfect unison, a well-coordinated act. A surge of fury rushed from my feet to my head, burning away my reason. I reached out and snatched the game console with a snap. I pulled his math workbook out of Leo's backpack and handed it to him. Now, go do your homework. Leo glared at me, his small chest heaving violently. He suddenly snatched the workbook from my hand. Then, before I could react, he raised his hand and, with all his might, slammed the workbook into my face. The hard corner of the book hit my cheekbone, causing a sharp, stinging pain. You bad woman. I hate you the most. Why don't you just get out? He shrieked at me with all his strength. I only want Aunt. Chapter 3 Chloe immediate. Ly crouched down, half embracing Leo, her voice soft yet urgent. Leo, how can you throw things at mommy? Quickly, apologize to mommy. Yet, her hand was rhythmically patting Leo's back in a comforting gesture. Leo buried his face in her arms, sullenly repeating, I hate her, I like Aunt. Marcus impatiently frowned. Grace, look at you, it's always like this. You always make a mess of the house. Can't you just let the child play in peace for a while? Marcus directly pulled Chloe and the still sobbing Leo out the door, saying they were going to play a bit more at the neighborhood park downstairs, and telling me to calm down. The moment the front door closed, the world finally fell silent. I slid weakly onto the cold floor, the numbness in my cheekbone finally giving way to a series of sharp, stinging pains. I don't know how long I sat slumped on the floor before my phone vibrated in my pocket. I numbly pulled it out. It was a bank text alert. Your supplementary card ending in XXXX has a charge of 50,000 renminbi. The supplementary card was with Marcus. 50,000. My fingertips grew cold as I tapped to view the transaction details. The merchant's name was a luxury store. I sat on the floor and waited for a long time. So long that the sky outside the window turned from bright to dark, and my limbs felt frozen. The lock turned. Marcus was back, alone. He didn't even glance at me as he changed his shoes, walking straight to the kitchen. Leo insisted on crying to go to Chloe's, so I just let them go back together. Why haven't you made dinner yet? I used the couch to stand up, then held my phone screen out to him. He glanced at it, showing no surprise, and even let out a tisk sound as if I had disturbed him. Oh, that. He shrugged. I bought that for Chloe. He admitted it so easily, so matter-of-factly. That's my supplementary card. I heard my voice tremble. So what? He slammed the water bottle heavily onto the counter, splashing water. It's shared prop. Rudy anyway. Besides, I'm a company general manager now. What would you, a homemaker, know about it? He finally turned to face me, his eyes full of disdain and mockery. If you've got what it takes, go make some money yourself. I stood barefoot on the floor, the coldness of the marble creeping up from my soles, seeping into my bones. The huge wedding photo on the wall, taken when we got married, now seemed like a massive irony. The sweeter I smiled in the photo, the more foolish I felt now. Marcus, as a husband who married into the family, had gotten to where he was today entirely because of my foolish support. I turned and walked out of the room, retrieving another phone from the safe in the deepest part of my walk-in closet. Marcus had never seen this phone before. The startup screen was a clean blue, without any unnecessary apps. I found the encrypted contact list, my fingertip gliding across the screen without a moment's hesitation. The dial tone rang only once before the call was answered. "It's me." My voice was eerily calm. "Freeze the supplementary card ending in 8846 under my name. Also, liquidate all my non-fixed assets at your bank and transfer them to my primary account." "Understood." I hung up, no wasted words. I then dialed a second number. A familiar, respectful voice replied, "Miss, it's late. How can I help you?" It was Uncle, who had been with my father for 30 years. "Uncle, it's me." I gripped the phone tightly, my knuckles slightly white. "Find me the best divorce lawyer in China." There was a second of silence on the other end of the line. "And," I continued, "find me all the detailed project bonuses Marcus received over the past 3 years. I want every single penny accounted for." "Mississippi. You and Mr. Marcus, just do as I say, Uncle. And book me a plane ticket. I'm going to see Henry." I cut him off, my tone leaving no room for argument. "Yes, Mississippi." Chapter 4 Champagne bubbles crackled against the glass, like miniature fireworks. The steady roar of the plane's engines completely severed me from everything on the ground. I leaned back in the soft leather seat of the first-class cabin, watching the clouds slowly recede beside me. Sunlight had just streamed into our master bedroom, illuminating the empty space beside Marcus. Marcus, as usual, shuffled downstairs in his slippers, finding only a deathly silence. He frowned in annoyance, muttering, "Where did that idiot run off to cause trouble now?" Just then, he found the note I had left on the nightstand. "As you wished, I'm off to make money." He paused, then his lips curved into a scornful sneer. He casually crumpled the note into a ball and tossed it into the wastebasket as if it were trash. Soon, he drove his flashy Porsche, taking Leo and Chloe to the newly opened Michelin-starred restaurant. "Marcus, let's order a bit less. The 3 of us won't be able to finish it all." Leo, however, said carelessly, "Aunt, don't worry, my dad has plenty of money. His cards have unlimited limits." Chloe's eyes lit up at once, and she even subtly shifted closer to Marcus. Soon, after they had eaten and drunk their fill, Marcus habitually pulled out his unlimited black card and casually handed it to the waiter. A moment later, the waiter returned with a professional smile, leaning slightly forward. "Sir, I'm sorry, your card cannot be processed." Marcus's brow immediately furrowed into a knot. "Are you kidding me? This is a limited edition black card from Swiss. How can it not be processed? If you don't know how to operate it, go get someone else. This is ridiculous." The restaurant manager immediately came over upon hearing the commotion. But he tried several times, and it still didn't work. "Try another one." Marcus impatiently pulled out another card from his wallet. "I'm sorry, sir, this one won't work either." The air began to grow hot. The glances from the surrounding diners were like tiny needles, pricking at his pride. Marcus's face flushed red. Suppressing his anger, he tried every card in his wallet. Again and again. "I'm sorry, sir." Leo, seeing something was wrong, pulled out his kid's smartwatch. "Mommy linked a card to mine, I can spend up to 100,000 a day. Use mine." But with a failed transaction alert, Leo and Marcus were completely dumbfounded. Chloe, sitting opposite them, also looked extremely awkward. Finally, Marcus pretended not to notice Chloe's expression, and stammered, "There might be some issue with the bank. Chloe, could you perhaps cover it first?" Chloe, her face looking grim, pulled out her credit card. But it was quickly handed back to her. "Madam, this credit card only has a 3,000 limit remaining." You see, accompanied by the whispers of the people around them, Chloe's face turned beet red. She took out all 10 or so credit cards from her bag, and finally managed to cover the bill. As soon as they left the restaurant, Chloe impatiently hailed a taxi on the street and left. Marcus frantically tried to stop her, but Chloe left without looking back. Watching the taxi drive away, Marcus panicked. He immediately pulled out his phone and called me, but all he got was a voicemail informing him the phone was off. Leo also roared from the side, "It must be Mommy. It must be that bad woman. Dad, can we not go home? I want to go find Aunt." I picked up my glass and drained the cold liquid in one gulp. The flight attendant approached at just the right moment, smiling as she refilled my glass. I nodded at her, my gaze returning to the documents spread on my lap. The acquisition proposal for Ascent European branch. This was our group's most successful overseas venture, and also the final stepping stone for Marcus to take over the group. But soon, none of this would have anything to do with him. Chapter 5. Marcus and Leo returned home. They sold all the expensive gifts I had bought for them secondhand. With the money, they went to find Chloe again. For the first few days, without me, they fell like they were in paradise. Chloe brazenly moved in. Leo was ecstatic. Before, I restricted his screen time as if it were a monster. Now, that game console became his new favorite. From morning till night, the sounds of intense battles and shouts of victory never ceased. The house grew emptier, yet Marcus spent his days taking Chloe to high-end clubs, watching her eyes narrow in satisfaction, an unprecedented sense of control welling up within him. But this false sense of respectability was utterly torn apart by a stack of bills at the end of the month. The mailbox was stuffed with envelopes bearing bank and utility company logos, the red payment due stamps like mocking brands, mortgage payments, car loans, and a hefty education insurance policy I had bought for Leo. Marcus haphazardly stuffed them into his briefcase, pretending not to see them. Bad things always followed one after another. That night, Marcus was startled awake by a suppressed cough. Leo was feverish, his small face flushed red, vaguely calling mommy. Chloe, woken by the noise, irritably rolled over and pulled the covers over her head. Marcus held his feverish son, wanting to call Chloe to get up, but Chloe impatiently pushed him out of the bedroom. They still went to that familiar private hospital. Knowing my identity, the hospital still admitted them as usual, and quickly completed the admission procedures for Leo. The next day, Chloe finally showed up, the tap of her high heels on the ground sounding extremely impatient. Do we really have to come here? Isn't the local urgent care clinic downstairs just the same? Before could reply, Leo cried even harder, his small hands clutching Marcus's clothes tightly. Chloe instinctively took a step back, pulled out her phone, and started scrolling through videos, as if trying to block out Leo's crying with external noise. When the bill was printed, the numbers on it were like a bucket of ice water poured over Marcus from head to toe. Chloe, I rushed out and didn't bring any money. Look, Chloe panicked immediately, taking half a step back as if facing an enemy. I don't have any money, don't even think about it. With no other choice, Marcus had to go home and sell his treasured watch, finally gathering enough to cover Leo's medical expenses. As the card reader spat out the receipt, Chloe's clear sigh came from behind him. It's just a fever, isn't it? The bag I saw last month wasn't even this expensive. She mumbled softly, but the resentment in her voice pierced my ears like needles. At that moment, Marcus held his sickly son in his arms, looking at the elegantly made-up, displeased woman in front of him. He must have been wondering what was going through his mind. In the conference room, the air felt like solidified glass. Across the long table, the old shareholders of the target company sat stiffly, my lawyer methodically explaining the contract details, his voice as steady as a lullaby. My personal phone vibrated beneath the table, the name Marcus flashing on the screen. I silenced it, but it vibrated persistently, over and over, as if trying to drill a hole through my thigh. The old foxes across the table exchanged glances. I picked up my phone, stood, walked to the floor-to-ceiling window, and pressed the answer button. Hello? Grace, it's me. His voice carried a long unheard hint of flattery and obsequiousness. Leo's sick, and I don't have any money. Chapter 6. I'm in the middle of a very important MA meeting. My voice was calm. I'll have my assistant contact you after the meeting. With that, I hung up, giving him no chance to respond. The meeting continued late into the night. When my assistant, Sarah, brought coffee, she reported in a low voice, Ms. Grace, the funds have been transferred as you instructed. She paused, seemingly choosing her words carefully. Also, the property management called to say, Mr. Marcus brought the young master to your father's former residence. My hand, hold. ING the coffee cup, frozen midair. What does he want? He's kneeling at the entrance. Sarah's voice dropped even lower. The property manager asked if they should call the police. A surge of nameless anger burned up from my stomach. It wasn't heartache, but disgust. Using as a prop, who was he trying to impress? The curious security guards and passersby? Tell the property manager that house was transferred last week. No one from the family residence lives there anymore. I took a sip of the scalding coffee, the bitter taste spreading on my tongue. And tell him, if Mr. Marcus continues to cause trouble and disturb the peace of the new owners, to proceed according to standard procedures. I had long anticipated this day would come for him. I just didn't expect him to lose even his last shred of dignity as a man. It truly goes to show the old saying, poverty can break even the strongest person. My assistant placed a document on my desk, her voice soft as if afraid of disturbing something. President, this is Apex's final layoff list. Please approve it. I remained silent, my gaze still fixed on the window. My personal phone on the desk suddenly vibrated. The number I knew by heart flashed on the screen. I answered, putting it on speakerphone. First, there was a rustling sound from the other end of the line, then Marcus's low, pleading voice. Leo, quick, tell mommy, tell her daddy knows he was wrong. Tell her you miss her very much, and tell her to come back, hurry. The urgency and subservience in his voice were like a dog begging for scraps. I picked up my coffee, taking a sip, the hot liquid sliding down my throat. Mommy, Leo's timid voice came through, thick with a nasal tone. Daddy, he made me call you. Leo. Marcus's voice suddenly rose, filled with panic. Immediately after, Leo's heartbroken sobs erupted from the phone. Mommy. I was wrong. I shouldn't have gotten angry at you, I shouldn't have called you a bad mommy. Please come back, okay? Dodd. Why knows he was wrong too. He cries every night looking at your pictures, and he sold the house but still can't pay off the debts. Our place is so small now. Mommy, I miss you so much. His every tearful plea was like a dull knife, sawing back and forth at my heart. But my hand, holding the coffee cup, was as steady as a rock. I set the cup down with a crisp sound. The crying on the other end of the phone paused for a moment. Everyone is responsible for their own actions. My voice came through the receiver, cold, without a ripple. Your daddy is, and so are you. Leo, you need to grow up. I hung up and placed the phone face down on the table. The world returned to silence. My assistant stood beside me, not daring to breathe. I picked up the layoff list and turned to the last page. The name Marcus lay quietly in the table, like a condemned man awaiting his sentence. I pulled out my Mont Blanc pen, its nib gliding across the paper, leaving a sharp signature. Notify HR effective immediately. Chapter 7. Before the car door opened, my lawyer, James, confirmed softly beside me. Ms. Grace, everything is arranged. As you instructed, if Marcus appears, I will handle it immediately. I nodded, adjusting the collar of my suit jacket, ensuring there wasn't a single wrinkle. Thank you for your hard work. My voice sounded very calm, even to my own surprise. Perhaps the last ripple in my heart had already smoothed out the moment I personally signed his termination letter. The automatic doors slid open, and dazzling camera flashes instantly engulfed me. I didn't flinch. Instead, I slightly raised my chin, my face adorned with the perfectly poised smile I had practiced countless times. My heels clicked on the polished, mirror-like floor, my executive team, legal department, and security detail following behind me. We advanced like a precise army, our steps synchronized. I spotted him instantly. Hidden at the edge of the crowd, he looked like a discarded, crumpled rag. He wore a faded, yellowish t-shirt, his greasy hair plastered to his scalp, his eyes full of calculation and desperate madness. He clutched our son tightly, the small child used as his final weapon, his face filled with bewilderment and unease. He thought I would relent, he thought he could still use the words father and son to manipulate me. I scanned the area, seeing several people with cameras pointing at them, taking pictures. Just as I expected. When he saw me, his eyes lit up like a hungry wolf spotting its prey, and he started to push Leo forward, ready to rush me. I didn't stop, nor did my gaze linger on him for a single second. I simply gave James a signal. James immediately understood, and with two assistants, formed an invisible wall, precisely blocking Marcus. I could hear Marcus's bewildered and angry growl, but those sounds were quickly drowned out by the flood of questions from reporters. Ms. Grace, welcome back. What was your biggest takeaway from Ascent's successful expansion into the overseas market? I stopped, turning to face the cameras, the silhouette of James handing Marcus documents visible behind me. It's not so much a takeaway as it is just the beginning. Ascent goal has never been limited to the domestic market. In my peripheral vision, Marcus stared in disbelief at the document envelope in his hand, its thickness enough to make him realize this was no simple greeting card. His face turned from red to white, then from white to ashen, like a poorly mixed paint palette. He tried to shout something at me, his mouth wide open, but no sound came out, only heavy gasps. He probably saw the words leaving with nothing. Just then, a sharp cry pierced the commotion. It was Leo. He was probably terrified by the scene and his father's distorted expression, crying his heart out. My heart felt as if an invisible hand had clenched it tightly, but only for a moment. I thought of countless late nights working alone, of how he expertly used tears and lies on the phone to hurt me, of how he had personally turned our home into a grotesque farce. I took a deep breath, forcibly suppressing that faint stinging sensation. I smiled even more brightly and impeccably for the cameras. Ladies and gentlemen, regarding the future of Ascent, we will provide detailed information at our press conference in 3 days. We welcome you all to attend. Behind me, there were excited follow-up questions from financial reporters, Marcus standing frozen as if turned to stone, and Leo's cries, gradually isolated by the crowd and growing fainter. I didn't look back. Not even once. Chapter 8. The light from the phone screen cast a pale glow on my assistant's face. Ms. Grace, the trending topic, went viral. I took it, my fingertips gliding over the shocking headlines. High scandal, a husband's cry for justice? Grace's scandal, abandoned and child for a new? The accompanying image was still from that day at the airport, Marcus holding a crying Leo, with my energetic silhouette in the background. It was quite dramatic. I chuckled. What outdated, tasteless headlines. The trending topic rose too quickly. It looks like a professional team is behind it. Probably a competitor. Sarah's voice was a little shaky. Marcus himself, he probably doesn't have the ability for this. Of course not him. With his mind, he couldn't come up with such a two birds with one stone scheme. One that could ruin my reputation and deliver a fatal blow to my upcoming press conference. Ms. Grace, should we postpone the press conference? I took a sip of coffee, the bitter taste spreading on my tongue. No, I said, setting down the cup with a crisp clink. Let them in. Sarah was stunned. Please invite Marcus and Leo in, and seat them in the front row. And, I added, block all the reporters they brought outside. Not a single one is allowed in. At the press conference venue, the lights were ablaze. Through the crowd, I saw Marcus and Leo being escorted by staff to the front row. A flicker of bewilderment crossed Marcus's face, immediately replaced by irrepressible smugness. He probably thought I was being forced to compromise by public opinion. He even adjusted his collar and gave me a self-satisfied smile. The opening remarks were as usual, about Ascent Overseas strategy and future market plan. The reporters below were clearly distracted, their camera shutters clicking only sporadically. All their attention was on the pitiful father and son in the front row. After I spoke my last word, I changed the subject. Before I answer your questions, I'd like to share a personal story with you all. The air in the entire hall instantly solidified. The giant screen behind me also lit up at that moment. What appeared was not the company's logo, but a high-definition photograph. In the photo, Marcus was embracing a young, beautiful woman, picking something out in a luxury store, his face beaming with doting affection. A collective gasp rippled through the audience. The smug look on Marcus's face instantly froze, as if he'd been punched in the face. The photos on the screen switched one by one, from intimate feeding at a restaurant to kissing at a hotel entrance. The woman in all the photos was the same person, Chloe. Chloe, my voice, clear through the microphone, reached every corner of the room. Over the past year, received gifts from my ex-husband, Mr. Marcus, totaling over 3 million. Camera flashes erupted like crazy, all aimed at Marcus, whose face was ashen. Of course, some might say this is just a domestic dispute between spouses. I paused, my gaze sweeping over Marcus, who had begun to tremble all over. In that case, the following video might clarify things further. The screen darkened, then lit up again, showing surveillance footage of our living room at home. It was Leo. He was happily rushing into Chloe's arms, calling out in a childish voice, "Mommy, you're back." Chapter 9. Chloe skillfully picked him up, kissed his cheek, and handed him a toy she had prepared in advance. They were so intimate, as if they were the real mother and son. And stood by, watching it all with a satisfied smile. The entire venue was deathly silent. Even the camera shutters stopped clicking. Everyone was speechless, stunned by this magical reality that rivaled a TV drama. The tide of public opinion, at this moment, completely reversed with a devastating force. I looked at the screen, at the home I had built with my own hands, now a paradise taken over by others. The last bit of warmth in my heart cooled. The press conference was an unprecedented success. The moment I announced its conclusion, Marcus suddenly rushed forward. He grabbed my trouser leg and dropped to his knees with a thud. "Grace, I was wrong. Please forgive me this one time." He was sobbing, completely without dignity. Behind him, Leo was bawling, terrified by the scene. I lowered my head, looking at his face, filled with remorse and fear. I felt nothing but revulsion. Security. My voice was low, yet cuttingly cold. Two tall security guards quickly stepped forward, one on each side, and dragged Marcus out by his arms. He was still desperately crying out, pleading with me, but his voice grew fainter and fainter, eventually disappearing beyond the door. A year. Time truly flies. My assistant, Sarah, knocked and entered, bringing the new quarter's financial reports. She set the documents down, then hesitated, as if remembering something suddenly. Miss Sue, she began, when I was verifying employee data today for the small data maintenance company we're acquiring, I noticed a name. Sarah paused, watching my expression. My fingers tapped rhythmically on the smooth desk surface, making a dull thudding sound. It was as if I was hammering the final nails into the coffin of a past that was utterly dead. Is there a problem with their resume? I asked, my voice as flat as if I were inquiring about the weather. No, it's J.U.S.T. The position is very low level, an entry-level role. I heard they only got in by pulling a lot of strings. I opened the report in front of me. The red growth curve looked like an arc of victory. Follow the standard procedure. As for that woman named Chloe, she was like a speck of dust blown away by the wind. After that press conference, she never appeared in my world again. I had no interest in knowing where she went. It was late. I was the only one left in the office. I walked to the floor-to-ceiling window. My reflection appeared in the glass, finely made up, eyes resolute, and a hint of genuine relaxation played on my lips, a feeling even I found unfamiliar. What I saw was my own night sky, belonging only to me.